Hola amigos de liderar.com. My name is Jamie Gelbtuch, and I'm the founder and principal consultant of Cultural Mixology, a New York-based company that designs, delivers, and facilitates cross-cultural and language training programs, as well as consults on projects that present unique challenges touching on culture and language. I'm here today to talk to you about the role that culture plays in projects. Unlike some areas of project management that can be more easily measured and controlled, culture is an intangible element. Yet, this largely invisible component of our projects permeates all 5 basic process groups, from initiating to planning to executing to controlling to closing. It particularly influences not only how we influence our project teams, but also how we communicate, motivate, and lead. Culture exists on many levels, and aside from the obvious cultural differences among team members from different countries, there are also organizational cultures and generational cultures with which project managers typically must contend. The anthropologist Edward T. Hall famously said that culture hides more than it reveals, and what it hides most effectively from its own participants. When we confront cultural differences of any kind, one of our first reactions is often to seek an answer to what's happening by first looking to the other culture. However, what's often most useful is to look at ourselves first, because as Hall said, we're usually not conscious of our own ways of doing things until we're confronted with ways that are different. This self-awareness can be a very powerful and effective tool for project teams. Of course, beyond self-awareness, the most successful project teams will take time to understand and actively manage the cultural differences that do exist. At the beginning of the project, they'll set aside time to get to know each other, and they'll establish accepted norms based on shared information about their personal and professional backgrounds, their language skills, and their communication preferences. This is particularly important for teams that will be working either in part or entirely virtually. An interesting exercise is to ask each team member to share 2 proverbs from his or her culture and explain the meanings. Proverbs typically reflect values, which are some of the strongest influencers of and explanations for behavior. We know that 2 of the project manager's most important responsibilities throughout the project are to motivate and lead the team. When we think about ways to do these things, we often fall into the trap of the golden rule, which tells us to do unto others as we would want done to us. Unfortunately, this rule fails miserably with culture, as it prevents us from seeking out and acknowledging some of the fundamental ways in which we are different. What motivates people from one culture may not motivate people from another. Some cultures may favor title and status recognition, others financial incentives, and others learning opportunities. What makes a good leader is also a very culturally contexted question. Is it an expert who knows all the answers, or is it okay for a leader to say, I don't know, and seek out the answers from others? When thinking about issues such as these on your project team, try applying the platinum rule instead, and think about doing unto others as they would want done to them. I mentioned generational cultures earlier because there can be tremendous variation there as well. For example, Generation X, as those born between the mid-1960s and around 1980 are known, values control over their schedules and their career paths, whereas Generation Y, those born from the early 1980s through the millennium, is more driven by a strong need for work-life balance and benefits that enable a gratifying career. And just to complicate things even more, the characteristics that describe the different generations may also vary according to national cultures. Generations are a product of the environment in which they grew up, and so clearly this will change from country to country. In the US right now, the 2 oldest generations, the baby boomers and matures, make up 45% of the population, while in Latin America, the same make up 27%. In the US, Gen X and Gen Y, the 2 youngest generations, make up 34%, while in Latin America, the same make up 53%. Differences such as these really highlight an important challenge for project managers who will most likely find themselves working across both national and generational cultures. Culture is really a unique combination of factors, and within any kind of culture, don't forget that we find individual differences as well. It's not something that we can measure or track in a project management software program, yet it's everywhere in our projects, from our organizations to our sponsors to our stakeholders to our teams, and so it's not something that can be ignored. On the contrary, it's something that can and should be paid careful attention to and leveraged in order to maximize both a team's and a project's potential. I'd like to thank all of the friends of liderar.com very much for their time and attention today, and I hope to see you again soon.